Welcome everybody. This is Archana from Read, Write, Inspire Book Club. Today is the 12th book club discussion and we are discussing Dr. Zhivago by Boris Pasternak. And so today the topics we'll be seeing is a little bit about the history, about the author, and what an adventure it has been actually getting this book published, and the themes, symbolism, a few discussion topics, and some quotes. So the book Dr. Zhivago by Boris Pasternak actually it's across decades. So it starts with the Russian Revolution of 1905, and then we also see the Russian Revolution of 1917, the Japanese War, the World War I, and the Russian Civil War. I didn't want to go a lot into detail of the history of this because it really spans a huge time period. But one thing which is special about all Russian classics is it backdrop of political, social, and cultural changes that are taking place in the society. So we see this also in Anna Karenina, actually. So since we had discussed that before, I thought it might be nice to compare them both. And we see that in Anna Karenina too, there is a lot of change taking place in Russian society at that time. Russia is changing from its from being a predominantly agricultural society into an industrial one, and we see a lot about how Levin, struggles with that, and how he doesn't want to, accept these modern equipments in agriculture. He wants to, go back to all those wooden equipments and implements that he uses, and so that we see that struggle between the modern and the modern culture and industrialization, which is being thrusted on Russia and which is expected that it would follow. But at the same time, we also see the Russians wanting to stay back in the traditional manner in which they have always been, the pride which they take in their culture and in their ways. So we saw that through one single character. Similarly, here across the revolutions, the war, and Soviet, uprising, everything is seen through these small characters, and we have these characters in different stratas of society, and through their eyes we see how it affects them. uh, so this is something which is considered very special with most of the Russian classics. I thought next we must have a look at the author. So Boris Pasternak was born in Moscow in 1890. His father was a painter, his mother was a pianist, and most of their family friends were also authors and artists. So the Russian novelist Leo Tolstoy and the German poet Rainer Maria Rilke, they were family friends, and they used to drop into their home often. So Boris and his siblings, grew up in this atmosphere of creativity and artistic pursuits. So all of them actually took up artistic careers, and Boris chose literature as his field. He was a very talented Russian poet, and his family lost everything in the Russian Revolution. So the character of Dr. Zhivago is based on his own life. And just like Dr. Zhivago, Boris also had lost all his wealth and everything during the Russian Revolution. In fact, the state gave him a dacha. It's called as a dacha, I guess. Dacha is a small country house. And so that is where he lived, and he kept writing his poems. Um, Most interesting and surprising thing about his life is that he managed to survive the purges of writers which took place under Stalin's regime in the 1930s. So it was he wasn't exactly Boris was never a person who accepted what was happening in the society, And he had his own individual voice. He did not, suck up to the government and or to suck up to the Soviet powers. He had his own individual voice. He put his foot down, and he was very vociferous even in public. But surprisingly, they didn't kill him. Um, but on the other hand, most of his friends, many of them, in fact, died during the Stalin's purges. So one of them is Osip Mandelstam, who was a very famous Russian poet, who was imprisoned. He was banished to Siberia, and then he was later killed. In fact, during this process, Pasternak is said to have directly spoken to Stalin over phone and pleaded on behalf of his friend, but it was to no avail. And he also lost some other poet friends too. Some of them, were tortured, and some of them, in fact, there is another famous friend of his who committed suicide. So um, he resisted the way the Soviets treated artists, and in many public gatherings, he's been vocal about it also. So he's always, made it a point to say that the government must not interfere in the voice of writers, poets, and artists. And the character of, Zhivago is based on his life, and many of his points of view and what he felt about the Red Army, the White Army, and the revolution and other things have been tried. He has tried to show that to Zhivago's eyes. And okay, so I think one of the most interesting things I read regarding the book was the story behind its publishing. Um, Thanks to Shamal Rao ji for first introducing me to the story behind its publishing. And later I went and also read up a little more about it. So initially, when he finished writing this book, it was rejected in Russia by all the Russian editors, because they felt that this showed more concern for the welfare of individuals rather than for the welfare of the state. And another thing is, they felt it rejected social realism, and it also read as if it was anti-Soviet in many places. And they felt there was criticisms of Stalinism, collectivization, the Great Purge, Gulag. Gulag is the communist labor camps, the harsh communist labor camps. And it was also they felt it was though it was criticizing both the Red Army and the White Army. The Red Army, which was in power, they didn't really like it, and also none of the editors, really wanted to take that. They didn't have the guts to actually go ahead and publish the book, so they didn't want to do it. Now, in this setting, what happened was, there was an Italian publisher who was interested in publishing the book. So in 1957, Boris Pasternak, in fact, arranged for the book to be smuggled out to this Italian publisher. In fact, when he arranged for it, it is said that Pasternak said that he told the person to whom he was sending it through that you are hereby invited to watch me face the firing squad. But it didn't happen. Instead, what happened was the Union of Soviet Writers tried to prevent the publication of this book, and still the Italian publisher persisted, and he published an Italian translation of the book in November 1957. And after this, the Communist Party of Italy expelled Feltrinelli. Feltrinelli is the Italian publisher. So it expelled him from their membership in retaliation for his role in the publication of the novel, because they felt that this was critical of communism. Now, after this, what happens is, once the book was published in Italian, it became quite famous. So it was well spoken about, and there was a lot of, conversation around the book. And this caught the eye of our US Central Intelligence Agency. So as soon as they knew there was this book, which was written initially in Russian, but was not published in Russia, but it ended up getting published in Italy. So immediately they saw that this novel is going to be an opportunity to embarrass the Soviet government. So what happens is, they decide that somehow or the other, we have to publish this book in Russian. And now publishing it in Russian is one thing, but they wanted to publish it in Russian and also get it in the hands of Russian citizens, because that's what would actually, be a real way of embarrassing the government, right? So what they do, through with the help of British intelligence, the CIA receives 2 rolls of films in January 1958, and it contains the pictures of the pages of the entire book. Now comes the question of distribution. So they wonder, how do they distribute this book? How do they get it in the hands, of the Russian citizens? How do they cross the Iron Curtain and do this? So that's when they hit upon this idea of doing it in this very famous exhibition, the 1958 Brussels Universal and International Exposition. This happened in Belgium. And now what happened is, just a second. Yeah. So they decide that this is going to be a wonderful place to distribute the book, because there are 43 nations coming for the expo. It's spreads over 500 acres of land. And very surprisingly, they have also come to know that Belgium has issued 16,000 visas to Soviet visitors. So there are going to be approximately 16,000 Russian citizens visiting the expo. So they see that this is the best way of, getting the book out. Now comes the question of printing the book and making sure that it reaches Belgium. So for this, what they do is they take the help of the Dutch intelligence agency. Now, the Dutch intelligence agency had about 600 members, 50 of whom were being the salaries, and they were being maintained by US. So they were directly like under US's CIA. And on top of this, the Dutch intelligence agency members were used to receive that training itself at Washington. So obviously, they didn't have much of a say in it. US just told them, you have to get this printed and make sure it reaches Belgium. And on the same hand, you should make sure that the name of US or CIA doesn't appear anywhere. No one should come to know. They shouldn't be able to link it to us. So this was the edition, the first page of the edition, which got printed. And this is a picture of the expo with all the decoration and everything in preparation. So the expo also, very interestingly, had a pavilion for US, and there was also a pavilion for Russia. And Russia was trying to, Russia was putting up its propaganda, and US was obviously putting up its propaganda. Now, amongst this, how does the book reach the Russian citizens? So they were wondering, they of course cannot distribute it from the American pavilion. So what they do is, 365 books, reach the, reach the pavilion. Instead of distributing it, of course they can't distribute it in the American pavilion. So what they do is they distribute it through the Vatican pavilion. So these are pictures of the Vatican pavilion. And the Vatican pavilion was basically about, how the Christian missionaries are, doing a great job around the world. And also, this about how they are suffering also around the world. All this was trying to be showcased over there, and the Bibles were getting distributed and all that. Now, amidst this, slowly, whenever they spotted a Russian citizen walking into the pavilion, they pressed a copy of the book in his hand. Okay. So every time a Russian citizen came in, a Soviet citizen came in, so he was given a copy of the book. So this was the beautiful blue cover of the book, which was being distributed. The book was so fat, and as we all saw, so what happened was, those people used to rip off the cover. They in fact literally ripped off the cover and just threw it over there. They divided the pages, and stuffed it into their pockets so that it's easy to hide. And so this is how the book got read in Soviet Union. And it was being passed in this hush-hush manner from one person to another in Moscow. And nobody had any idea about this, including Boris Pasternak. So in fact, there's a letter which he writes to his friend in Paris where he asks, is it true that Dr. Zhivago appeared in the original? It seems that visitors to the exhibition in Brussels have seen it. So he's as surprised as all of them. And the sad part is that the Italian publisher who bought the rights to the book, he had no idea about this. So he was pretty, pissed off, and he put a case against the Dutch publisher it was actually an academic publisher who actually published it in Dutch, the Dutch publisher. So he put a case on him and asked him, I have the rights to the book. How did you do this? And all these things. And that's how slowly US's role in this and CIA's role in it and everything came out. But after the publishing of the book became really famous, and it was read widely, not only in Russia, but also elsewhere. And this is what led to Pasternak being awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in September 1958. In fact, I thought it was so nice that we read the book in September 2021. And so it was published and the Nobel Prize was given to him. All this happened in September too. So it's great. It's been nice to read it in the same month. But what happened was that, of course, this is not something that would be liked by Soviet Union. So the KGB surrounds Boris's house, and they threaten him with arrest if he travels to Stockholm to collect his medal. They also threaten to send his mistress Olga back to the Gulag, which is the labor camp. It's like a concentration camp there. Boris Pasternak, in fact, he refuses to accept the prize. He sends a telegram to the Nobel Prize Committee saying, in view of the meaning given to the award by the society in which I live, I must renounce this undeserved distinction which has been conferred on me. Please do not take my voluntary renunciation amiss. And with that, he doesn't take the award. But still, the Nobel Committee persisted in awarding it to him. So the 1958 Nobel Prize in Literature was awarded to Boris Pasternak, though he did not go to collect it. Does anyone want to add anything? Tulika, did you know about all this?
No, I had no clue. Not about the publishing, about the US angle. I didn't know this.
Okay.
So that is really interesting.
Interesting, right? I really enjoyed reading about that.
Absolutely, yeah. I had no clue.
Thank you, Shamil Raoji, for first telling me about it.
I have to thank you, madam, actually. And you have brought it wonderfully in detail, in a very elaborate presentation, actually. I'm really happy. And I shall skip, because you suggested to speak something of that, I shall skip, there's no problem. It is so elaborate, actually. I have not found any point, actually, you have made. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
And one of the slides you referred to, actually, our Rainer Maria Milke, actually. He happened to be a friend of our I heard of this Milke first time when Irfan Khan, you have any idea? He's a cinema actor, actually, Hindi Bollywood actor. He was under treatment in 2 years back, actually. He has referred one of his poems, actually.
Oh, okay.
Because of his poem, actually, I heard about this Rainer Maria Milke. A different poet, actually, and almost the personalities of Milke and as well as Pasternak. He's a very serious type of poet. And he is there, if you can Google or anything like that, just keep going. That is the name of the poem. And that is the poem, or Irfan uses it actually at the time of his, almost he was ending his life has ended. That is one thing, actually. Good thing, number two. Number three was actually, by the time I joined, it appears some discussion was going on. Of course, I also contributed the same feeling because reading this book was not easy. I don't know, actually. It is a tough reading and tougher than Anna Karenina. That's what I felt, actually.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely. It's way tougher than Anna Karenina.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. And multiple characters, and each character has some 3 names, actually. That's what Russian culture. Every time you have to refer and other things, actually. That is number one. And the book is very long, intense, and it is intricate, the plot also. Anna Karenina
Mm.
was smoother, rather in one way it was going. It is not like this here. And the canvas that he covers is also huge.
Mm.
And there is, for example, actually the revolution, the poverty, the suffering, the political ideology, and as a very famous actually romantic this line of the book, one can hardly miss. And after
Correct.
having completed first reading, I had done, madam. And after completing it, that you have also written somewhere. Italo Calvino's words came to my mind.
Mm.
Italo Calvino's mind. Why, how plastics are to be read or something like that. In it,
Yes,
he
yes.
says,
Yeah.
why classics are to be read? How the something like that. He has written a book on classics. I forgot
Correct.
the name of the book. I have kept a note of the quote. In it, he says, a classic is a book that has never finished saying what it has to say. So, in other words, classics force you to reread them. And I
Mm.
feel actually the feeling I had for Anna Karenina, I have the same thing for this classic. I have sometime also to reread the present. Thank you, madam.
One good thing I felt about reading the book was that for the first time, I think I understood the complete sequence of events of all the Russian Revolution, Civil War, and everything. Something which I didn't learn, I think, as properly in my school days.
Yes, yes. And very good thing you have covered actually. The story, or rather, you called it an adventure of publishing this book. This is very well has been detailed in one of the books actually. The Chicago FI, the Kremlin,
Yeah.
the CIA, and the battle over a forbidden book. It was written
Correct.
by Peter Finn and Petria Cove.
Oh,
That book contains, I am sharing it actually in this chat box. Actually. And that contains the complete details of the book. Even I
yes.
went in for some YouTube also, I found things are there even.
Okay.
Very,
The
where
Zhivago affair, right? It's called as the Zhivago affair.
you are on dot. That is correct. Actually. You are
Yeah.
right.
The Zhivago
That
affair.
is,
Yeah.
contains lot of things, and the particular writer also spoke actually.
Yes.
I brought it in this actually. So
Yeah.
that is one good. And about this one more personal thing. If you are allowed, I can share.
Please tell.
It is
Share.
it is something actually when I was in my teens and I was searching for employment. I was unemployed and I was searching for. If you recollect actually at that period, one has to go in for a written and also a viva was at that time. Now I don't know
Okay.
what are the practices. And one of the subject is general knowledge, the other one was mathematics.
Mm.
In the general knowledge paper, there was a portion on English literature, which primarily consisted of author, books, quotes, and grammar. These are the three components. And I very well remember in the books actually this Dr. Zhivago figure, and the question was, who is the writer of this particular book? Well, I answered the question correctly, but from then on, actually, the name and the writer are different. This is typical. It stuck with my mind. And I promised to myself that I shall read. And with your help, this time I could, of so many years, I could complete reading it. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. And as for printing books is concerned, you have covered very well. I don't find much to say. Only thing is that Pasternak whole lifetime to write the book actually. Only one or two books he has written, rest of the poems and translations he has done. And
Right.
actually, and he earns a Nobel Prize that he will not get.
Yeah. In fact, giving up the Nobel Prize was so hard on him that I heard that within 2 years he passed away. He had some lung cancer and all that. He lost his will to live and all that, and he just passed away immediately after that.
The book is heavier and the tone is rather real in the website. And somewhere you also wrote in the recent mail I found actually, unless you connect with a place, you cannot write.
Correct. Yeah.
Any place for that matter. It could be a small bus stand or a park. What is that is? Unless you have a personal link, you cannot write. That sounds here. For example, he himself is a witness. He himself is the writer. So the book has more of authenticity and genuineness. That is what I felt. Because the writer himself underwent all those various problems and other things. And he has witnessed them, experienced them. He brings them out in the form of a book. So he is the writer and he is the witness. So genuineness and authenticity. That is one thing I found with this book. And the
Thank you.
input was yours. Experiencing a place or identifying a place, actually, you wrote somewhere.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I wrote in the mail.
That I
True,
mean.
true.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So kind of,
Okay.
so kind of.
Proceeding to the next one, I just picked up a few themes. In fact, there are a lot of themes and a lot of symbolism in the book. I just thought we'll speak about a few of them. So one of the main themes of the book is loneliness, and a war, of course, means separated families, divided communities, and the whole book is about struggling to find stability and love during war. But another theme in this, which is, I would say, very it is intrinsic to it, but is not so clearly mentioned. But it is a part of the book, is how though the Soviet society is a group, it's the but still the individual characters seem to be separated by loneliness, though they are supposed to be actually together. They should have that sense of community and togetherness. But I think Dr. Zhivago highlights the loneliness of each person, though there is a collectivism in the society. And the another very interesting thing about the book, I don't know how many of you noticed, is circumstances actually play a much bigger part. There is no logical flow to it. Most of the meetings of Yuri and Lara are completely chance encounters. It's all seems to be fate seems to play a part. And also, whenever Zhivago runs into some trouble, out of the blue his stepbrother would appear and save him. And that felt a little sometimes very convenient too. But that's one of the theme of the thing. Another interesting part of the entire book, I think, is the disillusionment with the entire system. So, for instance, can an ideal system on paper, of course, communism is a very ideal system on paper, but how far can it be practically implemented? I think that was one of the questions that he raises. And he also feels disillusioned by it. He doesn't feel that it would actually work. And also, another question that he raises is, if the system is for the people, the system which is being implemented is for the people, then is it really for the people if it is after a long drawn bloody conflict where so many people have lost their lives? Also, is it fair to expect people to lose their individualism for the collective good? Just maybe have a thought about these answers. We'll again talk about them in the discussion points. And a little bit about the symbolism. So, okay, as what we were just speaking about, the significance of the names. So it's not just us. Most of the reviews and discussion about the book talks about the names and how Zhivago itself is being called as Yuri, Yura. I'm not even going to try pronouncing the remaining. So there are 5 different names for him, and different names are used in different contexts. So this is because Russians have this habit of changing names depending on the circumstance. So if you're fond of a person, the way you address them is different. If you want to show them respect, it's different. If you're addressing them to someone else, you don't know the person, but you're just talking about them to someone else, then the way you address them is different. So this is why there is this whole confusion of different kinds of names, because the author has tried to show the significance of the relationship between the two characters in every time that he uses a different name. And another interesting thing about names in this book is that there are only 2 characters who use pet names for each other, that is Yuri and Lara. So he wanted to show their relationship as something maybe different and more intimate than anything else, which is, of course, it is. And I think they are the only 2 people who call each other with pet names. And yeah, so the other thing, other symbolic thing has been candles. So Lara says that she likes lighting candles, and in fact, Pasha says that he always carries, a spare candle because he likes how she loves candles, and he always has one for her. So he asks, Zhivago whether you have candles around, and he says there are a lot of candles because now she no longer lights candles. They use kerosene to illuminate the house. So there are a lot of candles lying around. So they say that the author uses candles to show that she needed comfort as a child, as a lost child during childhood, which is what Pasha gave her. But she was more confident and assured by the time she met Zhivago. So she was no longer in that phase. So it was a very gave thought to it. It wasn't a sudden decision to be with him. She actually loved him, and she gave a lot of thought into being with him. That's what it's said to signify. And the other, actually, it's filled with symbolism. The whole book. I think there is one about the fragrance of linden trees. Whenever he thinks of Lara, he gets the fragrance of linden trees. And similarly, there are a lot of symbolism. One more interesting one is the wolves. So there are actually no antagonists in the novel. The only person who can be maybe called as an antagonist could be Komarovsky. And so the Yuri keeps hearing the howling of wolves at night. So, and he's not happy about it. He feels that this could be dangerous to the people here. It could be dangerous to the horses, and he's a little worried about it. And Lara also hears the howling, and she thinks it could be dogs. So she also thinks it might be wild dogs. She is also not very happy about it. And this goes on every night. And the howling stops once he arrives, Komarovsky arrives. So it's said that, his arrival is what was being, shown through the howling of the wolves. So it's shown that they're trying to signify him as a wolf itself. Apart from this, also there are various other ways in which he has tried to bring symbolism into the book. In fact, it's said that though the book is long and of course, like Tulika said, maybe it could have been edited better and made shorter. But most people, especially in Russia, who've read the Russian version, feel that every scene and every page he has tried to give a more deeper meaning to things. Even there is that scene where he shoots the dead tree. Do you remember that? There's that instead of shooting a human, he shoots the tree. Yeah. So that's
he wanted to show that young boy.
So that's also said that it's shown because he is a doctor. A doctor is supposed to save lives. So how much ever he's frustrated, or how much ever he wants to try hard to protect himself, but he cannot shoot another human, so he shoots at the tree. So similarly, there are a lot of they say there's a lot of inner meaning to every single scene which is there in the book. Okay, so now coming to the discussion topics. The first one, which is very interesting, is how fatherhood and motherhood is portrayed in the novel. So when it comes to the children in this book, they are in the fathers play a very different role from the mothers. So even Lara says to Yuri, we're in different positions. Wings are given to you so as to fly beyond the clouds, but not for her. She has to be on earth and take care of the child. So again and again, we see mothers are the primary caregivers, and the fathers are engaged in all other endeavors away from home. So even when Lara, she hates Komarovsky, she just doesn't want to go with him, but she goes with him only because she wants to protect her child. It's similar with Tonya also. So she wants to move to Varikino in the first place only because she wants to protect her child. So this has been this has been the way in which it's been portrayed, and in fact from what I read, this was very true to Russian society in that time period, including Boris Pasternak and his father and people who are, his own the people whom he grew around with. So the fathers don't seem to be as much in the house and as much caregivers as the mothers. So I found that very interesting. Should I proceed to the next one? Does anyone want to add anything?
But eventually Lara she just gives her second child for adoption, no? Yeah.
Correct. I think
That is...
somehow I felt that could that have been something to do with the fact that she was with Komarovsky?
Maybe.
And yeah, maybe she was with him and he knows that it's Yuri's child. Could he have forced her to do that, or something that I wondered?
Yeah, no, I was just kind of...
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Yeah. So even I thought of that, how did she give up the child? But then I had this feeling that maybe because she was with him and he is a very different, and there maybe he didn't want to, with Katenka it's different, but with a child who's born out of wedlock or whatever, they feel that maybe how do we explain this child, so give it up, or maybe that's what I thought, maybe that's why she gave up the child.
Yeah.
Even at the end of the Lara comes actually.
Yeah.
Daughter, with,
and about
Yes.
about motherhood, mothers being more kind of, even Lara's mother, she was never very caring for her.
Yeah.
That is
right.
I mean,
I completely agree. Yeah. Lara, I think, had a bad hand with both. Father passes away and mother is also definitely not a person who cares. But somewhere I had this feeling that could it be that her mother was with Komarovsky only because they did not have any financial means. So they were living. So did her mother be with Komarovsky only because she wanted to provide for the children?
But she doesn't even notice how Komarovsky comes on to Lara. Somehow her mother doesn't do anything about it, or she doesn't seem to be even aware of it. Or was she?
Correct.
Yeah. So that was a little strange.
Yeah, right. And I felt those. Yeah, please tell. Yeah.
In one of the occasions also, mother advises Lara to go to him, the party and other things.
Yeah, correct. Correct.
That is the beginning of the turning point in the book. Actually.
Yes.
I was also wondering actually, when he is already Komarovsky and his mother are together, how come actually not getting advised again to go to? Maybe as you just said, actually this financial dependence. So that's what's working in the back of their mind. That could be the reason.
Yeah, could be. But I think the scenes between the initial scenes between Lara and Komarovsky were some of the best writing that I've come across. The best, I would say, analysis of a character. The way Lara feels disgust, but at the same time she also feels that flattery that this rich man is interested in me, or it's so beautifully, so well brought out from the eyes of a child.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think
very young actually. There is a huge age difference also between two.
Correct.
Despite that, actually, you are correct. The expression, the writing, the build-up of the situation. Yeah. Outstanding.
True. Really yeah, I really felt he did a great job over there in the way he's portrayed it. And also Lara's ending also did. It was so abrupt, right?
It was
That
abrupt
last,
and it was painful actually. She comes to
yeah,
attend a funeral and we don't find her. And subsequently, we know down the line that she has gone in search of her daughter. Maybe she has gone to some gossip to camp or something like that. It was painful.
correct.
No, even
Both the, please go ahead, ma'am.
no, I said even Dr. Jivago's ending is also very abrupt. I mean, he just gets down from the tram and then he's dead. So
He's dead. Correct.
it's very
That
sudden
is correct.
for both
Yeah.
of them.
It's
So maybe
very
he's just
sudden
saying,
and yeah,
saying whatever you do, everything comes to an end, and you don't know when. Sudden, it's over. That is what
correct.
it is.
Yeah, very,
Jivago
you
for that
rightly
night-
said, yeah.
Yeah.
No, rightly said. In fact, this is the same thing I read, that, he's trying to show that it's just sudden, despite all your plans and everything and whatever, the end just comes suddenly. But then, like, there is that pang, that feeling you have when you see that they are lost and they are no more. And just to end it on a little more positive note is why he has that last scene of the girl coming back and the child being found by Misha. And yeah.
But even that all.
For example, as far as Yuri is concerned, he lost his mother. With that, actually, funeral only the story begins.
Correct.
And then actually, subsequent few pages down the line, you find his father actually meets an accident. Komarovsky plays a game and he sees it. So he is an orphan from the middle. Now let us come to the Lara's case. Lara's case also like that. We don't hear about her father. And mother also, half of the way only it comes. She's also like that orphan. So both
Correct.
characters are bad characters. And at the end, actually, both die. No one remains. It is another gloomy ending, I felt actually. Thank you. Thank you.
One additional perspective, it just set me thinking when you were on this point. I was seeing in a history show of Russian history, the lecture. So the Russian society before the revolution and during the Tsar times and all seemed to be very much against women. So there was a grave imbalance between men and women, it seems. Soon after the revolution, they made some drastic changes in the law, giving almost, it is exactly equal rights to women in everything. So maybe, this is also a way of saying that, what I heard in that show is that soon after those legislative reforms, there was a profound change in the society. It was like a jolt to the society. Maybe these are lingering effects of the previous system where, the women fulfill the role of caregivers. And maybe this was one way where Boris Pasternak wants to show his slight protest on the state of things.
Yes, that could be true. It could be true because this was a very, so when by the time his book came, I think there was a more equal society in Russia, right? So this could be a contrast to what it was then.
Yeah, this was actually in the 1920s, soon after the revolution. In the early 20s itself, they made those legislative changes.
Okay. Thank you. So, so one more point I have for discussion, and I don't have any answers actually for this. I just wanted us to discuss on, I would love to know what you all think about it. So I don't really have any answer to this. So I'm just going to the next point. So individualism versus collectivism. As you know, individualism is thinking about your individual goals, and collectivism is coming together and putting the greater good, giving more importance to the group goal, to the greater good. So what do you think about this? Isn't man considered to be a social animal? So shouldn't collectivism be something natural to him? On the other hand, why can't individual goals also support group goals, right? So even when each of us, even in a capitalist society, in each of us go for our job and earn and spend our money, aren't we contributing to the economy? So isn't it supporting the group goal? And if there is a clash between an individual goal and a group goal, then what must be given a priority according to you? So I'm just throwing some questions. Please feel free to unmute yourselves and share your views.
For me, madam, actually, a judicious mix of individualism as well as collectivism will do best for the society. You can't tilt either way because that is going to throw spanner in the welfare of the society as a whole. Because collectivism was what Russia did, and there was a lot of opposition. Actually, individual options and choices for the people are not taken care of. That is where this book has come. And if too much of individualism also creates a problem, too much of collectivism also creates a problem. I wish actually we have a judicious mix of it. And it's not only social, it is also a political, there is a political connotation. Thank you.
So how does one draw the line?
Actually, it is very difficult. Because if you look at collectivism, the thing is that eventually somebody will start behaving as a dictator and they will try to manipulate the crowd. That is what it is. So it is, I mean, individualism is always there. Either even if you try and manipulate people into a group, and then again somebody is there who is trying to kind of manage you and all that. Like
there will be somebody at the top. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and that again, that part, we all will kind of follow his individualism. That is what it is going to be like. So,
isn't it interesting? Last time we read The Great Gatsby, which was all about capitalism and capitalistic society, and this time we did fully communism and
I had no idea in both, Tulika. Before reading, I had no idea about both.
So the point is that both can go bad if the balance gets messed up. Either way, it can go bad. So it's a very delicate balance between individualism and whatever communism. Whatever. So that.
Has anyone read Animal Farm?
I have.
Oh, you have, right? So you must be. I think that's exactly the point which you are making right now. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So
that's what she said. Somebody will be at the top, and that person will take things back to what they were.
Yeah, true.
So it's kind of a circle. Like you try and go follow the so-called collectivism, and then eventually there will be one individual who will again take the reins, and then again everything is back. So
correct. I think a lot depends on the person who's in power
at the top.
At the top. Correct.
And power corrupts. Like nobody is immune to it, so it's not going to work. That is the point.
Well, what do you think? I'd love to ask this to Sarath also. So what do you think? Would it work or not?
Yeah, it is both ways. Absolute. I mean, I completely agree. Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So if someone like Stalin comes, there will be a coterie around him, and they will become like a kind of ruling class, and the rest of us will be kind of the common class. But if individualism is taken too far, it happened during the Gilded Age in the US, and maybe again happening again. We are seeing unprecedented levels of inequality. There will be, again, instead of Stalin, there may be a business guy, maybe a Rockefeller or somebody who may be calling the shots, who may be having de facto control over lives of people. So both are actually equally bad. once a person becomes so rich, the political process tends to serve that person. That has been the history. So, both extremes are bad.
Thank you. So I just have a few quotes, and then we can wrap up. And if any of you have some interesting quotes also, please feel free to share. So they loved each other, not driven by necessity, but by the blaze of passion often falsely ascribed to love. They loved each other because everything around them willed it: the trees and the clouds and the sky over their heads and the earth under their feet. I thought it very beautifully written. I have the impression that if he didn't complicate his life so needlessly, he would die of boredom. I thought this could actually it's so true to so many of us. So at least so many people I know. Again, this was something very beautifully written. So he says that I'm not jealous of Pasha, but I'm very jealous of Komrovsky. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm jealous of your toilet articles, of the drops of sweat on your skin, of the germs in the air you breathe, which could get into your blood and poison you. And I am jealous of Komarovsky, as if he were an infectious disease. Someday he will take you away, just as certainly as death will someday separate us. I know this must seem obscure and confused, but I can't say it more clearly. I love you madly, irrationally, infinitely. That was also very, very, very interesting. The way I feel how Boris Pasternak actually breaks down certain very big emotions or big feelings into a very, very different way and presents it. So how Zhivago actually sees Pasha as an equal. So he doesn't care about Lara's love for Pasha, but he finds Komarovsky as someone far beneath him, and which is why he actually hates him and he feels jealous of him. I don't think I could love you so much if you had nothing to complain of and nothing to regret. I don't like people who have never fallen or stumbled. Their virtue is lifeless and of little value. Life hasn't revealed its beauty to them.
It's very good, actually.
This is This is very
I
good.
don't like people who have never fallen or stumbled. It also applies to us.
Yeah.
Very good.
So that's also, this time it's been very interesting. I read a lot of new articles, and there was so much about Dr. Zhivago, obviously, considering that CIA has got it published. And so it was really interesting to find so much about him. And I think the book, The Zhivago Affair, was also not, it hasn't been a long time back. It's been, I think, a recent thing. So I think that was another reason why I could find a lot about it online.
May I add, madam? May I?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Actually, in the end, there is a collection of around 26 poems appended to the classic. And it is quite organic to the story that probes questions on love, immortality, reconciliation with God, etc. And I was drawn to the first poem, Hamlet, because it is from Shakespeare, also wrote a book on that. So I permit me to read, actually. It is in English. The noise is still. Okay. The noise is still. I come out on the stage. The noise is still. I come out on the stage. Leaning against a door post, I try to guess from the distance what is to happen in my lifetime. The darkness of night is aimed at me along the sides of 1,000 opera glasses. Abba, Father, if only it be possible, let this cup pass from me. I love your stubborn purpose. I consent to play my part, but now a different drama is being acted. For this, once let me be. Let the order of the act is planned, and the end of the way inescapable. I am alone. all drowned in the Pharisees' hypocrisy. To live your life is not as simple as to cross a field. This last sentence is a Russian proverb that means actually life is not easy. To live your
Yes.
life is not as simple as that. And a Pharisee is a member of an ancient Jewish sect, actually, noted for strict obedience of Jewish tradition. And if you closely observe, the title is a metaphor, Hamlet. We may recollect actually Pasternak translated several of Shakespeare's plays. And while translating Hamlet, he observed that the drama is not of weakness, but of duty and self-denial. Hamlet emphasizes actually both these qualities in Zhivago. We can connect it. Who is weak, but very often shows the surprising strength of character, actually. And if you go back to Hamlet, Hamlet is a victim of his sense of duty and sacrifice in the Shakespearean drama. Often too weak to defy fate, and at times unable or unwilling to act towards the solution of his dilemma. Zhivago is also a victim of the event and forces that he could not control. And by using this metaphor of Jesus that above us, Zhivago strengthens his sense of duty and sacrifice and transforms himself into a strong man. As you just said, actually, one of the slides, Pasternak died of lung cancer on May 30th, 1960. Thousands joined the funeral procession. And volunteers carried the open coffin to his burial place. And those who were present recited this banned poem from memory. That is the beauty of this actually. And
Wow.
this is the story behind the poem. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I didn't, I have to be honest, I didn't read the poems. And after you explained this, I'm realizing the beauty of the poems behind. I have to definitely go through them. I will.
Please. And it also applicable to us actually. When we are in a helpless state, actually we give up and we call his name only.
Correct. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So I've made a poll for the next read, and I chose a few Californian authors. It's there on Facebook too. Oh, you voted already. Okay.
Because he
I
is one of
think
my
Tulika
favorite
has still
writers.
not voted.
Yeah, I'm basically
Oh.
looking for a shorter read this month. So I'm trying to, I will check
So
the
there
number
are,
of pages and then go.
Steinbeck,
so all the
Steinbeck
I
book
think all
is
the
804 pages. So
yes.
1
East
month.
of Eden, right?
Huh.
Yeah.
Or we
Huh,
could
Steinbeck
carry it for
is-
2 months, like we did with Anna Karenina. We had almost 2 months to read Anna Karenina. That we could do
Correct.
that if it's like very long.
Okay.
Let's see. A bit the results have not come in yet. So,
Correct.
yeah, like that.
Actually,
yeah.
as a matter of fact, Steinbeck is my favorite writer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I read The Grapes of Wrath, I read some 15 years back. Jane
Okay.
Fonda, actually, a movie has also come. Wonderful book, actually.
Oh.
So now you have chosen the second book, that is East of Eden. So immediately I voted. I didn't take time for it.
Okay.
Luckily, my favorite writer is figuring in the group discussion. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I was really, frankly, I was thinking, oh, it would be good if it's Raymond Chandler. It's going to be an easy read. It's detective fiction, I guess. So more easier and a lighter read. But East of Eden is also very special because I have you heard of this, that he wrote a journal of a novel. There's a book called Journal of a Novel by Steinbeck. Which comprises of letters which he wrote to his editor when he was writing East of Eden, and those letters were not really meant to be published. It was just his thoughts, his feelings. So it's got sentences like the kids are running around the house and they're not allowing me to write. Those kind of just his feelings and thoughts as he was working on East of Eden, and those were compiled and made into a book. And I have both, and I've been meaning to read both. So maybe if we get if this gets chosen, So that's a good thing one way.
But the only thing we need to have more time. 1 month, 800
Okay.
pages is. So
No,
we
we'll
have
make
to,
it 2 months then. If it is so, then we'll make it 2 months. We've also got Diwali and other things coming up. So
Correct.
maybe we can.
exactly. That is
Yeah.
the thing.
And
yeah.
it's a pity if you have to rush through a book like this. You
Yeah,
need to
true.
read it at leisure. So, like, I wouldn't have skipped the poems in Dr. Zhivago
Yeah.
because you're in a hurry, the pressure of so many pages to be read. So,
True.
yeah, if we take our time,
Dr. Zhivago, reading Dr. Zhivago is like kind of going through this by road travel with a GPS in rural India. So you don't know where you're suddenly, and then suddenly
Correct.
everything is, you never reach the destination on time. That's
True.
how I felt.
In fact, initially I had to go back and reread.
exactly. That's
I
what
had to go back and
happened,
reread.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The first 50 odd pages, I couldn't read. It's only later I realized that the names are all different. I thought I was missing out something. So I went back and read the first 50 pages again. And
Yeah.
but still it was okay.
Then after a point of time, I
up.
understood that if I'm going to do this, then I'm not going to be able to finish the book at all. So,
Yeah. So the list of names then was in front of me. I kept the list
Yeah.
of names and then so you could tally.
Yeah.
And when I
Yes.
said that it
And,
needed to be edited, I didn't mean that it needed to be shorter. But there was certain things, like there's a portion where Pasha is going in that parade and another character looks out of the window and then nothing happens. It just is. Like there are instances which don't lead anywhere at all. So
Right.
I found that a little, it kind of distracts you because you keep waiting. Okay, now this has happened. Something's going to happen, but nothing happens. So that's
Actually,
what I meant.
He wrote it over a period of 10 years, I think,
Exactly.
this book.
Correct.
So he
more
must
than-
not, at that point of time, he must have thought, I will, something
Get
I'm
back
going
to
to
this.
be. And
Maybe.
then when he comes back, he forgets that's what is happened.
Yeah.
And he didn't have an editor. So his draft was just taken and published by CIA.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing. I can't imagine no computer. So he must have had this massive bunch of papers, which it must have been hard to, put them all together. So,
Yeah.
right.
So when the
Anyway.
CIA decides, they can do it. Yeah. Yes, Shamal Raoji.
This is an intense book, madam, actually. While reading also, I had to be very careful because I did not like missing any of this things in it. So what I did was 3 things I kept in my mind, actually. One was actually the language, how wonderfully he played with the words. So I marked those paragraphs and I wrote it there. These are the pages where you will find wonderful expressions. And the other one was quotations, which you have just brought out. There were so many others also. So I said, actually, where are the pages, page numbers, where I can find wonderful quotes that I can take from the book. And the other one, actually, very important for you was the description of nature. This book, particularly, if you go back and look at certain pages, actually, the author describes nature is really beautiful. And he connects it with life. That is the other thing, actually. Somewhere he says, actually, they are going and fighting. And here he says, actually, the gloomy evening, sky is dark and other things. That means he mixes these 2 things. The way nature expresses and the situation that is there in the story. That is the thing I felt really good, actually.
True. Very
Yeah,
true.
well, I fully agree with you, Shamal Raoji. I did feel the same also. Exactly the same.
So I have marked them. One is E means expression. Another I said Q means quotation. Another I said N, nature. These are the pages. You remember, you can again reread the book. This was a challenging read. He said, why you read classics? I dropped some points also I took from Coelho's book, actually. And he has warned us, you have to, the classics are books. There is something always that actually is there you can take. Good experience, I must say.
Sir. So thank you so much. Please vote for the next read, and then if East of Eden gets chosen, then we'll have the discussion in November end then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it seems
Anything
like,
beyond 500 pages, we need more time. Within
Sure.
500, okay. That is
Okay. Sure, definitely.
But we can still have a meet, Archana. We can still have a meet and not talk. As in, we can
Oh,
talk something
yeah.
else. We can have a different topic related to
Huh.
classics. No, instead
Definitely.
of skipping a meeting.
Yeah,
Sure.
that would be interesting. Yeah, that we can do.
And if you don't mind, we can even have some other lighter book if you want, instead of a classic also. Like, for instance, I just started reading Wonder by Emma, I forgot her surname. And it's so interesting, it's a small read, it's a light read, maybe about 200 pages or something, 200 to 300 pages. And if you want to read something else also, we can do like that also. We can have some other, a lighter or a more interesting read. I'm
we
very
keep two
sure
books.
nobody is going. Yeah, we could keep two books in case this happens. Then maybe we can keep two books. We can keep this as something we will discuss in November,
Correct.
and something very light or very small as something we
Absolutely,
can
yeah.
do.
Huh,
in
that
the
is a
Very-
good idea. Exactly.
Very, very valid point, ma'am, actually. As
Yeah.
I just said, actually, reading this book is a tough experience. It was not easy.
Correct.
Every time your mind will get overloaded, as madam has said, focusing the characters, following it was difficult.
Yeah,
So what
yeah.
I did was, by the side, I kept a light book. Very
Okay.
light book, writer. And it is a book on actually lesser known character, Buddha's wife, Yasodhara.
Okay.
Ah.
Yashodhara.
That actually I kept it. It is an easy read because the story goes in a linear way. It's not like this book. So you can easily follow, language is comfortable, you also enjoy. So once you feel that yes, you are again recharge water, that is, you come back to this and attack. That is what this time I said. I will
Right.
just put it in my link actually. That would give me a little 1 moment time.
Sure. So we can, of course, definitely plan for something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
And do you want the book, which if we do that, do you want the lighter book also to be a classic? We can do a lighter classic also.
Yeah, either
Lighter
way.
classic. Yeah.
Like, for instance, Raymond Chandler's book in the poll is only a detective fiction, and it's not going to be tough to read, definitely.
Why did I read somewhere, Archana, it's supposed to be very complicated. Either they were talking about the movie. There's a movie also, right? The Big Sleep.
So,
Black Dahlia.
No, the Big
book.
Sleep.
Okay.
Big Sleep.
The-
Okay. Uh-huh.
From what I know, Tulika, the plot is complicated, not the reading of it. So the
Okay,
plot is
okay.
complicated in the sense,
Ah,
I think there's a lot of unreliable narrators and
correct.
twists
Okay,
and
yeah.
turns
I
and
think
those
that
kind
was
of
it.
things.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think I read one of those book riot lists, no, the most, and they said these books are more tougher than Inception. So that like freaked me out.
Oh,
But
okay.
it's okay. Yeah, it's okay.
Right.
Yeah, if the writing is not complicated, then we could go for it. So we could do 2 books. That makes sense.
Yeah. Or even the other one is also I'm bad with names now recently, especially after Dr. Zhivago. So the other one is also a detective fiction. So 2 among them are detective fictions, Raymond Chandler and the one more. And Gore Vidal might be a tougher read. I'm not very sure. But Gore Vidal is also very interesting. It's a 7-book series. Hollywood is the 5th book.
Okay.
So it spans enormous time period, and speaks a lot about, it's a historical fiction. So Hollywood over there is actually the Hollywood of yesteryears, how it actually came up, and you have real characters. So you have Charlie Chaplin and all of these famous Hollywood
Okay.
characters appearing in the book. So it
Actually
might be,
sounds interesting.
yeah, it's a quite an interesting read. But it might be big. I'm not sure. I think it might be 400 to 500 pages.
No, something 200, I mean, at 250, 300 pages. And
Yeah.
of course, East of Eden.
Looks like East of Eden is going to be it already, I think.
Yeah.
Could happen.
Yeah. Correct,
Hemingway's Old Man and the Sea could be a choice. That will be around, I think, little more than 100 pages.
Yeah.
That would be
That's
nice.
one.
It's
Yes.
good book.
Okay.
So you
So
let
good. We
us
can,
know.
yeah, definitely.
Whatever,
I'll let you know.
Huh.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.